soft stakes.
All right, I'm ready to go when y'all are. I'm Oak Felder. I'm a record producer, and I've been lucky enough to work with a whole bunch of amazing artists like Ariana Grande, Rihanna, Beyonce, recently Kehlani, just to name a few. I'm a producer, but people would be surprised to find out that I get judged by a lot more than just my production capability. I actually get judged by the mixes that I do. Because the truth of the matter is that the story of a song and how it eventually will turn out starts before you even start doing the production. Whether it's from the initial conception all the way to the final mix, at the end of the day is a real narrative. And how well a narrative works is really determinant on how well all the pieces fit together. There are certain rules that I decided that I wanted to abide by, because if I'm going to be thinking of my production as something that is sort of mixed forward, then I have to make some decisions early on. There's an R&B group out of the UK named Flow. It's 3 amazing vocalists. A lot of the material that they had been making, especially with me, sort of followed this early 2000s kind of R&B energy, right? When this track was first made, this is what it sounded like. This is how this track started. The first thought that I had when the process of creating this production was, start at 10. Start at 10 with every single element all at the same time. All this, all that, all these swashes and swooshes and effects and stuff, pianos, these really cheeky fake guitars. My first rule was to start at 10 because it then makes it easier for you to reduce it down to 3 for the verse, 5 for the pre, and you're already where you need to be by the time you get to the chorus. If you introduce the elements to the listener a piece at a time, it gives them more of an opportunity to understand what's being built. 2 very important friends of ours, right? One of them is our kick drum, and the other one is the 808. They take up so much of the same space. And so let's listen to our kick. Very typical for that period too, right? Except a little beefier than you would have in that period because, it's still got to be modern. The other one is our 808, which same thing, is an 808, but it has to have a little bit of modern feel to it. So this one is crazy distorted. Now I'm going to play you what these instruments sound like together with no consideration. And that's fine, right? I mean, it's cool. There's a little bit of jankiness happening right at the top of that sonic because that 808 and that kick are fighting each other for that same space and the frequency. So what do you do? What do you do in that situation? Typically, somebody would say, take your kick, bust it out. So we're going to go to my 808 and we're going to pull up a compressor, right? Kind of going the sidechain compressor suppression route. The kick in the 808, and basically what's happening is the kick is pushing the 808 away when they both happen at the same time. The kick is winning this battle. And in this case, it kind of has to because the kick is providing a lot of the structure of this production. And I'm going to play it in context with the whole track. My 808 sounds kind of neutered now because a lot of that information goes away when the kick is here. So what do? There's a plugin that I like to use that actually handles this, in my opinion, a little bit better. It's called Carve's Resolve. And it basically does kind of the same thing that the Sidechain does, except it allows you to keep a lot of the information that doesn't conflict with what's happening in the kick. It allows me to be a little bit more surgical with how I carve my frequencies. And I already got it routed here, so we're going to turn it on. Already, I can hear all that information in my 808 and my NS10. It doesn't feel neutered at all. It has every bit the same amount of energy. Oof. And there's this function on Carve, this thing called auto makeup. This thing is fire, man. It's incredible. I can actually A/B that. Without it, and it still sounds good. I can hear all the harmonics in the higher end, but this is with it. Bruh. And I want my 808 to sound a little bit unhinged. That is... Bro, that is fucking unreal. I'm sorry, I don't mean to curse. The auto makeup feature, that is unreal. When I do a production, things sort of build not in order, right? I might add a piano. As a matter of fact, that's exactly how this one came together. This is the first thing that came out. It's a little piano. I love it. I love it. And then I think I layered it with these. Now, so there's this sonic, there's this sonic. I don't want both of these to kind of live in the same place in this production. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up this plugin called Center, which I love. It's one of the simplest plugins, especially if the concept of mid and side don't make sense to you. Now, let me explain this for anybody who doesn't know. Most people know about left and right, right? You pan something to the left, you pan something to the right. But people don't know about mid and side. Mid and side basically means that there are certain things that are happening in a sonic that both speakers have in common and are identical. That part of your mix is called the mid channel. And then there are things that your left and right speaker are doing separately. That part of your mix is called the side channel. The good thing about this plugin is that it takes all of those complex concepts and it just condenses it down to a volume knob on your center and your sides. It's just that simple. So what you're hearing is only the center channel. And if you have a pair of headphones on, it's going to sound like a mono signal. Mono being directly in the middle, not in the left or the right. And then, so now I'm going to turn down the center and turn up the sides. This is everything that's happening outside of the center, in the periphery of your sonic. Now, if I take this plugin, if I duplicate this over, and then flip those sensibilities, essentially what I've done is I've taken the center out of one of the channels and I've taken the sides out of one of the channels and I've kind of gotten them out of each other's way. And it kind of allows both of them to live in the same space without me having to mess with panning, without me even having to touch EQ. It literally is just saying, okay, you don't live in the center, you live in the center. You don't live on the sides, you live on the sides. And it is important to understand those concepts when you're trying to create space in your mix. One of the main things that I group are my drums, because I want my drums to absolutely knock hard as... Can I get bleeped? I get bleeped. Yeah. Hard as... Go ahead. Yeah? So these are the full drums. And yeah, this right here is classic. I love that. So basically, I have my drums all sort of consolidated into this one track stack in Logic. It really puts me in a space where I'm thinking about all my drums as a single character. And putting them all together gives me space where I can actually decide to do individual things to each one of these instruments. But after the drums are finished, I love to consolidate them and treat them as a collective. There are two things I always put on my drum buses: saturation and some sort of transient shaper. The saturator that I'm using here is Magma BB Tubes. It's basically like a tube emulator. So I'm gonna kind of overdo it. And then I'm gonna take my mix. There we go. And bring it down to about 40, maybe 30%. That saturation does kind of the same thing that distortion was doing for the 808. It's taking a lot of the harmonic information that exists within the drums and just pulling them out, right? Pulling them out so that they're a little bit more apparent. In addition to that, I want to make sure that my drums are nice and punchy. It's early 2000s, remember. Punchy, 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 punchy is the name of the game. I'm going to use a transient plugin here. Let's use Smack Attack. Okay, Smack Attack. Basically, attack, sustain. The beginning of the sound, the end of the sound. What is transients? Okay, if you've ever seen a waveform, do that, right? Do that initial amplitude jumping up, that's called the transient. That's the highest point at the beginning of your sonic. Everything after that is your sustain, the tail, essentially, after that initial hit. Basically, what this plugin is going to do is take all of those first transients, those attack transients in your drum sonics, and push them and make them sound even more present. The point is that it makes your drums knock a little bit harder. So I'm gonna turn this up. So if you're listening to it, listen specifically to that percussion that's happening in the background. This bad boy. Listen to how much more attack and how much more bite it gets as I turn this knob up. Say beat. Sustain basically does the opposite or does the same thing on the tail end of your sonic. It either makes it louder or softer or at least makes it sound like it's more present or less present. So you can hear the difference here. This is more sustain. So all of our sonics are starting to sort of bleed out into one another, and this is less sustain. So now our sonics are starting to get shorter and sound more sort of staccato and truncated. So now we are going just with those two changes. That's saturation and manipulating your transients. And that's on your drum bus. We're going to see what it feels like in the mix. Before. And after. And there it is. So, not too long ago, I went to go see the Nutcracker. There was a point where there might have been, I don't know, 10,000 people on stage doing one form of dance or another, but it felt like one organism because they were organized and they were choreographed and they were doing it in such harmony that kind of made them feel like one thing. Then I realized that's a way that you can take complexity and make it feel simple. So what I decided for this particular track, how I applied that was, I made sure that there were instruments that were on the rhythmic side and instruments that were on the melodic side that mirrored each other. Now, these are the kind of drums that you would hear like a modern version of an early 2000s R&B track. So you got your kick, you got your snare, but you got your hi-hat. Just holding that 16. Okay. I wanted to have a sonic mirror that sound. So when I did that, I added a melodic part that was doing exactly that same rhythm. So here, let me pull it out. Here's our 808. And then right after that, I added this. Now this is a melodic representation of what's happening on our 16s. Now I'm gonna show you how big a difference it makes to the rhythm. It's not a big sound. There's a random loop that the producer that I did this with is a guy named Jamie Silverstein. It's a random loop that he played. And I was like, oh, that's cool, man. Let me take that. And we looped it to match the hi-hat. Listen to the track. Now listen to it without that sound. Hi-hat's still there, so the rhythm of the 16 is still being represented. But the breath of that, the dance of that 16 is not being represented without this sonic. And those instruments, on a complex level, dance together to make one organism. So you got to make sure that you mirror your rhythm on your melodic side with the things that are happening on your rhythmic side. Makes the track sound better. All right, this next rule is a hot take. It's a real hot take. The rule is believe in your own vision. Believe in it enough to jump off the cliff. The rule that I have is bounce your instrumental into a 2-track. Now, I'm going to tell you why I'm saying that. I started doing that out of necessity initially. Early in my career, I couldn't really afford a dope computer. I didn't have a system that was powerful enough to handle all the production tracks and then on top of that, the vocal tracks, especially in R&B. There's 1,000 backgrounds in R&B. So my workaround was to bounce my instrumental, open a separate session, put my 2-track in, cut the vocals to that, and call it a day. Fast forward years later, the systems that come out nowadays, honestly, the capabilities are so fantastic no matter what your price range is, so you can kind of do anything you want. I don't have to do that anymore, but I still do. And the reason that I do is because I want to commit to my production. I want to commit to the intention that I had for this track when I sat down to make it. I don't want to second guess myself. So I will bounce that bad boy into a 2-track and pull it into my vocal track and then go from there. So we're here in the vocal session. It's a magical place. It's a beautiful place. The main thing that's sort of getting in our way right now is the music. And mind you, while I was making this track, I had a mind towards that. I know that the vocals sit in a certain range of the EQ. So I'm thinking of that as I'm doing each instrument that I know is going to clash with that, right? Pianos, guitars, things like that, things that sit in that same sort of vocal range. So I'm either spreading them out, or I'm doing the mid-side trick, or I'm ducking the EQ a little bit. Really that as a last resort. I don't like ducking EQ though, because once you've ducked that EQ, it's gone forever, right? It's ducked the rest of the song, even in sections where she's not singing. So I want to instruct my 2-track to get out of her way. I want to instruct my instrumental to play the back to the star that is the singer. My way of doing this is to bus. I'm busing it over to 51, and I'm going to set my bus 51 to no output, right? So we're not hearing a double sonic. Now we're going to go to our 2-track, and I'm going to pull up Curves again. I love this plugin. And set our bus to the bus that our vocal was bused to. And this plugin knows what frequency is mostly being used. And then it knows what to duck out of the 2-track. It's going to duck whatever pertinent frequencies in the vocal are creating a bad resonance with the track or just kind of getting in the way with the track. And it's going to do it in real time. And that's what I love about it, because remember what I said, when you duck an EQ, it's gone forever? Here, it's not. It ducks it while the vocal is happening, and then it goes away while the vocal is not happening. So, you keep elements of your production in sections that need to shine, and you get rid of certain elements of your production when the vocal needs to take the front. So here it is. I can hear the character of her voice. I can hear exactly how she feels singing this record. Again, this is a mixed thing that I've done, but I've done it for an emotional reason, because music is about emotion. The cool thing about that is that with the auto makeup on, we're not losing any energy from the track, which I think is just beautiful. I think it's genius. My uncle used to say, if I can hear your reverb, it's too loud. And I've kind of followed that rule in a lot of situations, but there are some situations where I feel like the reverb itself needs to have its own personality, and it needs to give a certain texture to what's going on. So we're going to focus on George's lead here. You're dressed up for nothing. Did my makeup just to watch it all running. Boy, you got. Let's go to a new bus here, bus 52. Bam. So we're going to put a little bit of a reverb on her vocal. I want this reverb to sound big. I want it to be super wet, so. You're dressed up for nothing. Did my makeup just that's it. I kind of want it to be a larger reverb, though. So here, let's go into our presets and see if we can find a nice big hall. Large hall 2. Let's bring that reverb time up even further. I'll play that reverb with the track. It's super distracting, right? So we're going to go ahead and filter that out. It's still a little distracting. So this is what we're going to do. I don't want this reverb to distract you from the vocal itself. So we're going to send another signal. Actually, I already have one here. So bus 51 is going to a bus, and then there's no output set to that. So it's kind of just ping-ponging internally, right? We're not hearing it out here. We're going to go back to bus 52, and we're going to pull up the Resolve plugin. We're going to sidechain to our vocal. So now what's happening here is Resolve is going to take the reverb signal and start carving it where there is signal from the vocal itself. Basically pushing the reverb away, or elements of the reverb away that will distract you the most, but keeping the body of it, but sort of carving out of it. And so here we go. You're
dressed up for nothing. Did my makeup just to watch it all running. Boy, you got me looking in the mirror like fuck me, baby. You know how to make a pretty girl cry ugly. Don't tell me you love me.
And so now our reverb is there. Our reverb is there, but it is sort of falling out of the way of the vocal, or at least the elements of it that can be distracting and the elements of it that are going to clash with the vocal are falling out of the way of the vocal while the vocal is present, leaving the parts of the reverb that we want to keep, the parts of it that give it the sheen, that give it the presence that we're looking for. And you can actually hear the reverb tail at the end of this vocal and everything that's being suppressed out. Watch it, check it out. Hear that? You can actually hear it jump from under the vocal. And it's a way of keeping the spirit and the energy of a reverb, like a really big reverb, without it clashing with what's happening with the vocal, without it clashing with what's happening with the rest of the song. And it's a really good to Carve vocal. I actually have that vibe all over this particular track right now.
Boy, you got me looking in.
Learning how to tame textures. If you give certain elements of your vocal production different textures, you can differentiate them from each other. Case in point, here's our background vocal for the chorus. Now, the way that I split my background vocals are the main stack. So here's that. So then again, this is Georgia singing the doubles. And then this is everybody else singing all the harmonies.
Just to watch it all running. Boy, you got me looking in the mirror like fuck me, baby. You know how to make a pretty girl cry.
And then this is those two vocals together.
Nothing. Did my makeup just to watch it all running. Boy, you got me looking in the mirror.
Problem is that within this cluster of vocals, these vocals are treated very similar. So I'm going to change the texture of one of them so that it differentiates itself from the main stack. And the way that I'm going to do that is very simple. I'm going to pull up this plugin called Kaleidoscope. Kaleidoscope has a lot of different options in it, but the one we're going to use is the chorus option. Go chorus, bam, and there it is. When I say I want to change the texture of a vocal, I literally want to change the texture of a vocal, and a chorus can do that. Simply adding a chorus underneath the main melody will differentiate it from the rest of it. This is on.
Got me all dressed up for nothing. Did my makeup just to watch it all running. Boy, you got me looking in the mirror like fuck me, baby. You know how to make a pretty girl cry ugly.
And that trick to save my butt so many times, and it's really, really allowed me to sort of shave the texture of all the vocals that I record. Now, I've said a lot of things today that hopefully you will think are, little tidbits of information that you can use or things that you might really disagree with. And so, at the end of the day, you can take from this what you want and you can pick and choose whatever it is you think is most useful. But at the end of the day, we're all going to be doing the same thing. We're all going to be tweaking somebody's emotional message.
Don't tell me you love me. If I'm still with tomorrow, you lucky. Boy, you got me looking in the mirror like fuck me, baby. You know how to make a pretty girl cry ugly.
All the layers of the cake.